Hello, everybody. Welcome to my first live stream. If you don't know me, my name's John. I'm a financial planner at Retirement Income Group, and I've got some friends with me, some cybersecurity professionals that we're going to do a talk today to, really what's been happening over the last few months is that we've been seeing a lot of major cybersecurity incidents, and really over COVID, these things have accelerated. So we've had a lot of conversations with clients. We've had a lot of clients and people across the country have become victims. So we wanted to host something today, an educational session to teach everybody really like what's going on and how can they better protect themselves. And I'm here. I'll let each person introduce themselves, but we've got some there, and everyone here has got tons of experience in technology and cybersecurity. And I'm actually a customer of two of the people at this table that we use in our business every day to help protect data and privacy and everything. So I'll let Gary, if you want to go
Me first. Okay, very good. My name is Gary Kimmel, and I lead a team of a very particular type of architect for a very large technology company known as Salesforce. And my role essentially is the equivalent of a field CTO, so a chief technology officer who works with our customers. Prior to joining Salesforce, I was also at a very large bank, one of the Canadian financial institutions, as their chief security architect. So I'm very astutely aware of what the industry has been growing and looking like, and how the latest landscape of threats and hack attempts has been happening and playing out.
So hi everybody, my name is Kevin Derman. I'm the Strategic Alliance Director with Slalom Consulting, managing relationships with AWS and Snowflake as examples. And I've been in technology for just over 30 years and have worked with many technology companies during that time, and with many security solutions as well. And looking forward to sharing some of the experiences and hopefully preventing you from being a victim to one of these cybersecurity crimes.
Ali?
All right. Thanks very much. Welcome to our podcast here and live stream event. My name is Ali Qureshi. I'm a co-founder of SideDrawer, and we're a secure collaborative platform that's used by financial services firms, from individual advisors all the way up to large enterprises. And we secure the nature of the information exchange that takes place between the company, the firm, and the clients and their related parties. So, for example, John is a client of ours. Him and his team would engage with clients on sensitive documents and data that they have to collect in order to make the financial plan, in order to create a holistic estate plan. But then they also collaborate with the estate lawyers, the accountants and bookkeepers, and all of that information that has to be exchanged today is done over email, which is extremely insecure. So we provide a very secure collaborative platform where that can take place. And we hope to be able to contribute to the conversation on security situations.
Yeah, for sure. And Ali mentioned it as well. So in our practice, we don't want to exchange sensitive documents over email. I think, the stat, I think it's something like over 90% of hacks actually occur over email.
Correct.
So in order to mitigate that, that's one of the things that we've actually implemented is using a collaboration tool like SideDrawer, where you can store your documents, you can share it with your mortgage broker or whatnot if you need to get a mortgage. We also use Salesforce, which is also a CRM, if you're familiar with CRM, customer data management, and obviously that's highly secure as well. But let's get into, I guess, the start. So we're going to start off with just going through what's been happening over the last 2 years. Why are we seeing all of these major cybersecurity incidences? We've had Mackenzie was recently hacked, which was a big one. It was all over the news. We also had issues with Manulife Bank. The CRA was hacked a couple of years ago. So what's really going on? Why do these things seem to keep occurring, and why are they occurring at like a faster rate? We're seeing more and more of them. We're seeing a lot. They seem to be bigger as well in terms of size and scale. I don't know who wants to take on that first question. Kind of like what's been going on? Why is this happening kind of in this way, where they seem to be accelerating?
Yeah, I'm happy to make a few comments around that point. So I think the first thing that we have to do is we've got to segment that there's two types of cyber attacks that we're speaking about here. The one is at the individual level, So I've got my data on my machine, I've got my banking details, my home passwords, all of those kind of things, and the vulnerability that surrounds me with all of that kind of data, that my personal data. And then the second one is the business side of it. And one thing that we've seen over the past couple of years is that we've got to refer to the pandemic, because it certainly has been instrumental in increasing some of these attacks. So we've seen that increase over the pandemic time period of certain attacks, for example, hacking into businesses, because people are in a different environment. And if we look at the vectors of how these things start spreading, it's very much comes down to that individual approach. So while I separated the two initially and said, okay, we've got these individual attacks and we've got the business attacks on both sides, the commonality that we find is the individual. So an increase over the past couple of years is down to the change of environment, people going home, companies not being equipped to handle the security changes as we've migrated these environments to a work from home environment. Many companies were scrambling to find solutions at the time when there was lockdowns worldwide. And that certainly put additional pressure on IT departments in how to manage these. And most of the time was left unmanaged. So people now had to access these systems. So how did they access these systems outside the work? Through the internet. They had to open them in order to get that information out. A lot of companies couldn't afford VPNs. So it really depends on the type of hacks that we're talking about. Another thing that I would say is the prevalence of and the maturity of the internet and also the people in that environment. So it's the so-called bad actors. They're getting smarter and smarter and utilizing a host of various different ways. So they're learning as well.
The hackers are learning scary stuff.
So one thing that that many of us step over, it's been like this for many, many years, is email being the most common attack vector. Most people don't know there's an acronym for the protocol that we use to send email, and that acronym is SMTP, which stands for Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. And when we say simple, it really is very simple. It's like 4 or 5 commands, and you can send email to anyone from anything. So you could impersonate and say, I am, president@president.gov, and I can send an email out like that. So when everyone went and worked from home during the pandemic, if you get an email from your boss saying, please do this transfer of money to this account, that was a lot harder to verify if that was really your boss, because you don't want to get into trouble by saying, I'm not going to do it, or calling your boss every time you get an instruction by email. So that led to a real problem, is we couldn't just walk to the person's office and ask them for a signature or something. So the simplicity of email is still plaguing us to this day. The other thing that we see as being a cloud provider, we have been for 23 or 24 years now. The bad actors that you talked about have started to write their own cloud platforms, and you can now kind of rent a hacking platform for very few dollars. You can actually rent a very powerful hacking platform and use it from home, which was never available. Normally, you had to be a very advanced coder or programmer and be able to do that hacking. Now it actually is available to you with an instruction manual, with a how-to guide. It's become really user-friendly. And what not many people realize, we work in the customer relationship management field, but very, very few people realize bad actors have their own IT departments. They have a CRM of the people they've tried to hack and how well it's been working for them. And they deal with that like we would deal with a marketing campaign. They have hacking campaigns and they target us. So they know how many times they've come into our mailbox, how many times we open their email, the phishing emails and all those things. So I think those are some of the changes that have happened over the last little while. A big increase in hacking as a service is now available and everyone's going at it.
But this is not an advert for hacking as a service.
It's not an advert for hacking as a service. Do not use hacking as a service, because you don't know, if you do give them your money, you don't actually know what they're doing with your details, because they know who you are as well if you're renting those services.
If I can make a point to add on both of what you said, there's with employees moving and working from home more often, the employee is still basically your last line of defense against any of these. So you can have all kinds of sophisticated programs, But essentially, it's that person who has to be aware, and they have to be trained to know what is a good email to open, what is a good link to open, or a good attachment. Because once you open that, it can launch some sort of malware code that then does a takeover of your computer. And it just takes one employee to accidentally click on the wrong email, which then opens the door for somebody to take over an organization. We've seen that happen over and over and over again. And the factors that lead to that is working from home, being distracted, being tired, not having that boundary between work and life balance, which everyone is struggling with as well. All of those factors drive into not being able to have that mental attention at that moment, where it's very critical to have that. So I think that's a significant part of what's happening, unfortunately.
Yeah, so it's not just putting up a firewall or using a VPN. Well, I mean, I'm hearing some crazy stuff here that you can actually hacking as a service, like it's a legitimate business and they have their own IT departments and I guess, I don't know, sales department. Like that sounds really foreign to me because you always picture a hacker as like some hooded figure in a basement, typing away at a keyboard. I'm not expecting like a professional organization, hacking as a service, as you mentioned. But what we're also hearing too is a lot of training for both individuals, like, for me, potentially clients, and also employees. Like They really need to be trained on how to identify an email, and also kind of like the more they're interacting with these things, the more that there's the opportunity for a mistake to happen, where you accidentally click on the wrong link or something, and you have that there.
I really feel sorry for the small business owner that's actually out there, because just taking what we've spoken about now, and we've only really touched the surface of the dangers that are apparent in this environment. And if you think about the effort that they have to go through in order to skill up the people that are working for them, put in place security that is going to prevent some of these attacks, make sure their systems are encoding their data. There's so many things that they've got to go through that it is a full-time job, obviously. But that person who's that business owner now has to take away time from running their business and think about these things. And I think this is also a reason of why we've seen an increase, is as we had this change, so many of these people are trying to make a living, to make a success of their business, that they don't have time to actually go and look after these security issues. So it becomes a kind of thing of, well, I don't think it's not going to happen to me.
Right.
And coming to the initial stats that you've had, it's the amount of people that have been hacked it's a huge amount, and not only in companies but on individuals who have had their personal identity stolen as well.
Yeah, and I know Ali, you brought some stats to us as well. I don't know if you mentioned them about the number of U.S. law firms that have been hacked in the last. It's actually staggering. Yeah,
this was a study that was done by an email security provider. So, they know the space, you would think, right? They provide email security. And they said that 85% of US law firms had been actually hacked. And intrinsically, I have a Google alert that lets me know if there's any breaches that have taken place. So I get, it's been picking up quite a bit. My mailbox has been getting a lot of those alerts recently. And a number of them are related to law firms around the world. You're starting to see it happen, that there's some big ones in Australia, in South Africa, and also in the UK, and some very famous ones in New York recently, just in the last 3-4 months, that you've seen some big data exposure take place because of these law firms. And we can debate, like my view on that, why law firms. I think lawyers, they communicate over email, they use attachments and file sharing links, and they're automatically prone to clicking on a link. And I think that's what opens the door for somebody to come in and take over. So I think it's something to be very, very aware of. And so that's why our platform, you don't have to worry about that, because none of that information exchange takes place over your mailbox. So
it's a very important aspect of what I think we're going to end up talking about here. Is the cold, hard truth is someone you may have dealt with may have gotten hacked, and your data may have leaked out through someone else. It may not even have been taken out of your possession or your hands. Right. To be fair to the large organizations or the small ones, if you think of how many security controls and audit processes and just the number of auditors you have to have in a legal law firm, you have to have a certain number of controls and the due diligence you need to do in running a business to make sure that it's being run correctly. To put that in perspective, the bad actors do not pay for those fees. They have all the money they make is put right back into, we can make a complete go of everything we need, IT wise. Whereas businesses have to spend money on engineering teams and audit and backup and disaster recovery and all of those things, which consume a lot of their resources. So when you see a hack happen, one of the things that we've seen a lot in the industry is the hackers don't actually want to have a run-in with you. They just want to find the least possible resistance path to getting money out of you. So if you do hack a law firm, A, you now know something about the client, which you can use to extort money from them. Or B, you can just say to the lawyer, if we tell your clients that we've hacked you, you won't work again in this industry anytime soon. So you're going to be paying us for a little while now. And you kind of end up carrying that cost. So it's a very interesting conundrum about they aren't that motivated. They're actually quite lazy, but that doesn't mean they're confused. They're just lazy, or as long as you're a little harder to hack than the next person, that seems to be one of the best defenses.
It's the steering wheel lock argument.
Correct. You want to just say what that means? Some people are not familiar.
If there's a car thief walking down a street and he or she is intent on stealing a car,
which happens a lot in Toronto now.
Unfortunately,
lots of car thefts.
You come across a car, it may have a steering lock, which I guess we haven't seen in a long time. But for those who are a few years older, you might remember that there was a steering wheel lock, a red one, typically strong metal. That was just a deterrent. So you'd automatically move to the next car, which didn't have one, because you didn't have to spend the extra 6 minutes to try to crack through that or cut through that lock.
Yep, it's the policy of you don't have to have the best security, you just have to have one better than the person next to you.
Outswimming the next person, outrunning a bear, all of that.
Running faster than a lion. Yeah. So what are we actually saying here? What can people do, knowing that like Canada Revenue, our own Canada Revenue Agency, was hacked? A lot of the ways we verify who we are is by being asked, can you tell us what was on your Canada Revenue filing? If they were the ones who got hacked, it feels a little like that's out of our hands. What is the suggestion, or how do we approach it?
Well, I think the first thing is taking the data that we've looked at, and I've got another stat for you as well. Stanford University did a study to look at what was the cause of most of the data breaches out there, and 88% of them were caused by human error.
Right.
So that's a massive number. When they asked the companies the same question, and they said, so, how much of the issues in your security are caused by human error, the owners of the business or the people in charge of security said 21%. So there's obviously a mismatch here. So we've got heavy dependence, as we know, that the biggest weakness that we have here is in the individual itself. 88% of them caused by human error. We've got to take the first step any company should be taking, or any individual, is around the education of the individual, around the training of that individual. And this is why so many companies are putting in a lot of money into training programs, these online training programs, and stipulating that it's mandatory for their staff to actually go through that and understand how to spot that phishing email, how to understand what data you can copy across and what you can't copy across.
Yeah, and then there's one other thing too I want to bring up before we get into maybe what are the things, specific things you can do as a client or as an advisor. So there's also a lot of advisors that potentially could be watching this as well. ChatGPT just came out a few months ago, and artificial intelligence has exploded. I mean, I'm sure it's been in the works for a few years already, but it really came to the public eye. And some of the things that you can see on YouTube or TikTok or Instagram of what this technology is capable of in terms of mimicking people's voices or crafting very human sounding emails, like how is that actually impacting the cybersecurity space and maybe making it a lot easier to hack, considering that most of the hacks are coming from human error and people clicking on links on emails and things like that.
So I can address this one. I think there was a blog I read, which was done by another email security company, where they went to ChatGPT and instructed it to write a very convincing email with no spelling mistakes and no grammatical errors, right? So it sounds convincing. Then also write a code that would get inserted into an Excel file that was going to be attached as an attachment to that particular email. and they would just sat back. It required a little bit of finessing, but you can imagine that someone without that much experience can use ChatGPT to construct an email like that with this bad code. And what it's done is that it's lowered the bar for someone to be able to actually use these AI tools to create these attack emails across email and other channels. And now you've seen this proliferation. It's just exploded. The number of how quickly you can set up a mail server, how quickly you can set up a website, how quickly you can get an email going and send out to thousands of people or millions of people. So I think it's really made a situation significantly worse. We don't joke about it. We say that it's like adding gas to the fire, right? In terms of how much this is going to impact cybersecurity trends. And the challenge that businesses face is that they can't actually put revenue to increased security spend. And so this is something that maybe I guess as vendors we would face, that they don't look at it that way. To us, it's actually you should look at it as an insurance policy, and you have to buy insurance. Some cases it's completely regulated, so you have to have it like car insurance. But for businesses, they have to look. I think they have to look at this as an insurance for themselves. There's just a certain amount of their budget that they just have to spend on cybersecurity. Where before it was like, am I going to get the ROI on it? What's the revenue for it? No, it doesn't matter. It's to protect your own business.
The AI revolution, I think, has got pros and cons, and you've spoken about some of the cons of being able to get any information that you want. If you want a hacking system written up and you want the code, it will make recommendations, etc. On the positive side, though, I think the AI boom that we're going to go through is really going to help in a way of being able to also identify which are these bad actors that are out there, which are the hacks. So if you think about the early days of antivirus software, initially you had to wait for the vulnerability to come out until they could say, it was a vulnerability. Here's the patch for the code. Right. Here's the software that's going to be able to recognize that let's say it's a SQL injection, for example, it can recognize it and stop it. Then it moved on to just being able to pick up the pattern in what these kind of attackers look like, right, and stop them before they've even found out about them. And I think that's what we're going to be going through in this next phase of generative AI, of that ability to actually not only take it at an antivirus level, but maybe it's going to be scanning my emails beforehand and looking and warning me, okay, does this one look like, and even identifying if it's been written by ChatGPT.
Right. It's like leapfrog between the bad actors and the good guys.
It's always, how do you stay one step ahead?
So that's going to be where I think the value of this conversation may go, is how do you protect yourself and your business? And the last aspect of that is, how do you protect yourself if the data that you've shared with people you've intentionally trusted for good reason have then themselves been breached or hacked? Where someone you've trusted, one of the downfalls of the system that we use today is, if I trust you with my data, if I give you my social insurance number, if I give you my date of birth, I can't revoke it. I can't say, please forget my date of birth now.
Right.
If it's been hacked, it's out in the wild. Yeah. So if I can't go and get, it's not very easy to go and get another social insurance number or change my tax submission from 3 years ago to say some other number on it. It's kind of baked and sealed. So what do you all make of that? How do you think people can protect themselves or their data once it's in the wild?
What do you tell your clients?
What about once it's out in the wild? I mean, I don't know that there's a correct answer. I mean, some of my clients, I talk to them about some of these issues as well. It just as I talk to all of you, and some of them are like, oh, I've been hacked 4 or 5 times in the last 5 years. Right. I get notices all the time. Other people, it hasn't happened to them yet, but there's almost like a casualness around the conversation. And a lot of the times, right? I mean, if your SIN number is compromised, you actually have to prove, like in order to get a new one, you have to actually prove that it's been used in a nefarious way. So just having your SIN number stolen, the government doesn't care. You actually have to prove that it's been used in some sort of crime or for fraud in order to get a new one. So it makes it very difficult to protect yourself if your information's out there, or you find out that you've been a hack. I mean, what we normally focus on is making sure that you're signed up for credit monitoring. If you can get cybersecurity insurance, get the cybersecurity insurance as well. You know, some companies, if you're a victim of a hack, there was a huge hack that happened a couple of months ago, which spurred the idea for this podcast. You know, where as part of that the investment company's insurance policy, they gave free credit monitoring and cybersecurity insurance to all of the victims of the hack as like a preventative measure. So making sure that you sign up for those things, because in many cases you need to notify, like if you have cybersecurity insurance, there's time limits. Like you need to make sure you notify them if there's a breach or you notice someone checking your credit immediately. And obviously credit monitoring is going to help you know that ahead of time. If someone's checking credit under your name and you haven't applied for a loan anytime soon, you know, it's a little bit difficult. I would also say too, I mean, obviously I'm a financial planner, and you know, we have to deal with data all the time, and it's not necessarily also data, it's also like ongoing requests. For years, I mean, I used to be at one of the big 5 banks and at a large insurance company, and you'd always hear kind of stories of people sending money accidentally to, you know, someone else's bank account, or I know that, you know, I can't speak about them publicly, but there were some instances where people sent, you know, quite a lot of money to like maybe a bad actor by accident and things like that. So, I mean, in our practice, I mean, my clients will know that if someone tries to withdraw money or something like that, we always do at least 2 steps of verification. So if someone emails, we don't process anything unless they're spoken to on the phone. So even if there was necessarily a bad actor or AI, you know, we're getting at least 2 separate communication mediums to make sure that it's really them and the right person. You know, also 2-factor authentication. Anytime someone's signing an important document, they get the text to their phone plus to their email. So, you know, so in some circumstances, it's like a phone call plus an email plus there's like a text message lock on signing certain specific documents, which makes it a lot harder. To your point on the steering wheel, it's a lot more difficult if you know, if you have to go through all of these steps in order to hack and get that. And we do actually have clients whose emails get hacked, and we get emails from the hackers. It's happened twice already this year, where we've gotten emails and then kind of like, why did you send us that really weird email about you being lost or something, right? And it's like, oh, it's not me, my email got hacked, you know. And then obviously we have to lock down their access to all the systems and everything. But it is kind of like a regular occurrence, and those are some steps that you can take, and some stuff like we do. And I mean, happy, you know, other advisors can copy us in that regard, because I know some people just do kind of one method of communication, but just, you know, I mean, I've seen videos too where someone takes a recording. I mean, we just did a whole YouTube video now. All of us
Our voices are exposed.
Yeah, right. Now, all of us can easily become victims to AI hackers. It's very easy for someone to take my voice, record it, and put it into an AI bot, and then have it make a phone call on my behalf, and it'll sound maybe not exactly like me, but almost like me.
How do we know this is you?
But you raise a really good point. I think one thing that if we can leave you with one actionable insight here, most people try to simplify their life by making something as easy as possible. When it comes to your data or your security, avoid at all costs that willingness to try and make something simple. You kind of want to make this, you know, jump through a lot of hoops so that it protects you. These hoops that you're going to be introducing, adding a second factor of authentication, like when you log into a system, have it text something to your cell phone as well, have it send an email with a code to your email address as well. Not just because it makes it harder, but it also alerts you if someone else is doing it. Right. So if you have credit monitoring, that's a great one. It's a service that you can either pay for. If you've been unfortunately hacked, then maybe whoever got hacked will pay for the service for you. But being notified someone is applying for credit on you means there's someone who's gotten access to your data. So you want to start watching it more carefully. So the first thing is avoid the temptation to try and make your access to your systems as easy as possible, because that easy becomes a problem, you know, when it's reversed against you. It's so easy to hack you, as opposed to make everything a lot more difficult for the people who might, you know, assume the worst, don't assume the best.
One point, John, that you mentioned is being vigilant and monitoring your transactions on your credit cards and emails. One trick I found was there are so many email filters now. If you have a Gmail account, it will automatically, you know, curate the ones that you should see. But I would recommend actually checking your junk mail every now and then, because there might be some added subscription that somebody has taken on that Gmail hasn't seen before and filters out into your junk mail. But that will alert you that, hey, this is something that I actually didn't sign up for, and now I'm being charged $9.99 or whatever the amount is. So just be aware of all your different mailboxes that you have in your email systems.
So I think that's great advice for individuals, and to do it from a company perspective. I think that the business owner that's out there should really look at what is the budget that they can afford to spend on security, and then make sure that they are doing the necessary things and dividing it into those groups of education, thinking about the actual people, having policies in place, having policies around even your Wi-Fi access, so that you're changing your Wi-Fi password on a regular basis, doing security audits on your systems, checking your database accesses. AWS S3 is notorious for people just not knowing what they've got to do on it to lock it down.
Yeah. And AWS, that's Amazon Web
Services. Thank you.
And so I guess on that point too, for small business owners, because we still, I mean, for the most part now, everyone's moved to the cloud. There's still some businesses that actually have like physical servers. You know, what's general recommended practice? Is it servers or cloud, or what do we?
Well, it's the general feeling is that security is definitely well, it's most likely better in the cloud. You know, if you think about somebody having servers, it's unlikely that they actually have got the data center with the same kind of physical security that one of the big hyperscalers has got. They just haven't got that kind of manpower to actually manage that environment in this way. So security is better, but it's a shared security model, which means that there's a portion of the security that AWS or Microsoft or Google will manage at the cloud environment, or Salesforce, the cloud environment. And then there's a portion that you are responsible for as the user. So your passwords to get into the system, not using your root access to get into the system every single time, making sure you've got identity and access control in place for all of that. So definitely the way to go is the cloud. You think about that server over there that you might have in a back room under lock and key. If somebody breaks into it, they can just pick it up and walk out the door.
Lost everything.
And take all the time that you need. What intrigues me, and I'm interested to get your view on this, is ransomware. I have heard of more and more companies now that even publicly have said, "Oh, we got hacked and we just paid the ransomware, and we're moving on." What's your feeling if your business had to be held to ransomware? What would you do?
It's a very difficult conversation that has to happen with management as well as the board, right? And your cybersecurity insurance provider. And as a side note, make sure you have cybersecurity insurance, right? That's a growing product offering by most of the insurance companies. But I think there's, like with anything else, there's an assessment that has to be done, and how can you recover it? If you have backups, then maybe that's less of a concern, but then it's the exposure, right? What kind of information? So really, from our perspective, our information is, without getting into too much about it, but we go to lengths to make sure that that's not going to happen. Right. But I think for a lot of businesses where that data can be exposed and it has a reputational risk for them, they probably have to make that tough decision to go ahead and pay it, because I'm speaking without knowledge on this, but I believe that it's not a crime to pay for like ransomware settlement. I think at one point there was, but now it's not. It seems to me, I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's, you're right. We're seeing more and more companies willing to pay.
So, I mean, on my end, I mean, I'm not in the industry like you are, but the thing that surprises me the most is just how common it is, and how it doesn't seem as big of a deal anymore for a big organization to get hacked, or someone to get hacked. I mean, there's still, obviously it's like a very serious thing, but when I talk to, like, if I talk to 10 people, maybe 6 or 7 of them are like, oh, whatever, just another hack. And maybe 3 of them are like, this is really terrible. And so I mean, to me, it just kind of seems like what can we actually do? It seems like almost like a helpless situation. It's like, okay, you can fight them, but then, I don't know, maybe I can't use the service for a while, or whatever. I mean, that's just me noticing from the news and just from speaking to people. I mean, I've never been a victim or targeted.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things that fundamentally hackers previously, 10, 15, 20 years ago, used to try and inflict catastrophic damage. They would try and do something absolutely catastrophic to your business in what we would call a butchering. You would get butchered, in the metaphorical sense. Now, what we've noticed is over the last 10 to 15 years, hackers prefer to bleed you, not butcher you. It doesn't serve them for you to be in a catastrophic, paralyzed state, because then you'll either say, well, you've made it so bad, our business is going to go out of existence. So you've killed us, and that's the end of it. We're not paying you. So they don't gain anything from that. That basically was a dead weight around their what they thought would be an actionable asset. So bleed versus butcher is a concept. It's a common thing. When you do notice, if this ever happens to you, seek professional help. Do not try and wing this or do it on your own. Go to either legal professionals, go to the police, go to the federal regulators who govern this kind of thing, especially if you have a company that manages financial information or assets. Second piece after that, the ransomware is usually, just to give context, they usually have infiltrated your data and then will encrypt it and withhold the decryption so you can't see it. It still stays usually where it is, but you can't get access to it for one or another reason. So one thing that's an important aspect here is making sure your backups go back a long period of time so that you could at least restore a long time ago backup. A lot of the times the decryption and encryption is backed up as well. So the ransomware gets embedded into your backup stream, but that's something to consider, is managing that process. There's no short or quick answer out of a ransomware attack. The best thing you can do is, as you say, protect the first line of defense or your people. So the ransomware gets in somehow. It doesn't happen by accident. It doesn't fall on your head like a safe falling out of a building. It's not that kind of risk. Someone allows email to get clicked, or someone does something because they think it's a person of authority asking them to do something. So that would be the human training. Make it very, very acceptable and encouraged for employees to be able to ask a superior in the company, are you sure I should do this? I want to speak to you on the phone. Don't give them hell. Don't give them a hard time. Don't shout at them. Don't tell them, stop calling me and wasting my time. Like, you want to really encourage them to call you and verify, because that's one of the only ways you're going to stop the ransomware before it ever gets seeded into your environment.
It's great. And I know too, cybersecurity insurance has been mentioned a couple times. And it's not a popular policy. Like, not a lot of insurance brokers necessarily will sell that, or they don't promote it, even if they do sell it. So, most of your, like, if you do auto insurance, that's usually who you would contact for something like this, right, if you're actually looking to purchase it. And a lot of times, it's not promoted that much. So you might have to actually ask your broker for it. They may not try and push it to sell you. In terms of, for a financial advisor, when you go to purchase your errors and omissions insurance, like by law, I have to carry errors and omissions insurance. Everybody does. You can optionally add a cybersecurity insurance policy. That's what we've done. And that's what I generally would recommend other financial advisors do. Even if you think you might be covered under an umbrella policy, it's still probably a good idea to have your own, just based on the environment or intent. Sometimes it can be how something happens, just to ensure that you're covered and your clients are protected as well. So.
And just the benefit of that is that in case anything should happen, that insurance policy would kick in and provide the credit monitoring and so on for your clients that might be exposed, and plus other recovery consultants, legal fees, and things like that. So it's very important to consider, for sure. Great advice on that. Yeah.
Do you want to leave the audience who may dial in or listen to this on a later date, do you want to leave them with a list of things that we've listed here? Do we want to put something in the comments so that they can see sort of recommended practices about, personal things? If you have a computer, logging out of every session you ever use that required you to log into it, make sure you always log out of it. Don't just close the browser. That leaves your session on that server open. Things like that. Do we want to leave a link in the comments?
For sure. We can do, Retirement Income Group has a newsletter. So I can leave a link in the comments. We can upload something after. And I would recommend, signing up for our newsletter. It's open to everybody, not just clients, other financial advisors, insurance professionals, investment advisors. We'd be happy to share that as well. So I know we have a list. It's on the computer here. So
yeah, we do.
We aren't just winging this. There's actual talking points on the computer there. So I'd be happy to share those with everybody.
one thing a colleague of mine was asking, why would you make this podcast or this vodcast or, this live stream? Why would you do this? And it doesn't necessarily impact me if someone does or doesn't get hacked directly. But what I've noticed over the years is the more companies that get hacked, the more penalties that get paid, the more insurance that gets issued for this and then gets redeemed or, claimed. We all kind of suffer a little bit. Everything gets a little bit more expensive. Everything gets a little bit worse. If everyone's data is hacked, it makes it harder to do anything. So then companies have to spend even more money securing this. So I try to make sure we're contributing to keeping everyone as secure as possible, whether they deal with me or a customer, or it doesn't really matter, as opposed to you're all on your own. Good luck to you. Best of British luck to everyone. I try to find a way, like, let's not have anyone get hacked because it doesn't help any of us. When one of us gets hacked, we're all in this together. If you've ever probably seen someone on, one of the social media sites, Facebook or Instagram, they'll message you and it sounds like an odd message. That's because they've been hacked on that platform. Very common. That happened to me.
Usually for a crypto investment, right? Yeah.
Well, one person messaged me and said, I've been taken into hospital unexpectedly, and it's my niece. She was terminally ill, but she's doing better now, but we need to give her a gift, and I can't go to the store and buy her a gift. Can you please go and get her some Google Play cards, just $50 or $100?
No, that was me.
Okay.
That was a legit request.
That was not legitimate. It was
not
not true.
Not
true.
He was me.
But I basically started asking the person. I just asked them a couple of questions about, do you remember that time when we met back in where we were both from? And the person never answered. Yeah, they said, no, I don't. So I just checked. Are you sure you say you are who you say you are?
Right.
And they failed that test. So I realized, wow, that was actually, I was very close to going and saying, well, shame, it's a pity they're in hospital. I better go and help out. So they will appeal to your better nature. Yeah. Be mindful of being used for your good nature. That's what hackers are relying on, is that we're nice people and that we want to help out.
And I think if we were to summarize some of the things that we've been chatting about, one of my single thing is what I started off with, which is about the education of the individual. Take it on as your own personal responsibility to be educated about this. There are so many courses online, on LinkedIn. You can find courses on cybersecurity, on what to look out for. And if you're doing it for your staff and your employees, I would suggest that it's not a simple thing of saying, watch out for phishing emails. They can look very similar. They've got to go through examples and learn how to pick up what these things look like. Because an email, and in fact, I'm ashamed to admit that I got caught 2 days ago. No, not 2 days ago. It was on the 1st. So I got an email from the bank and saying, here's your credit card statement. So the date was right. The email was spot on. They'd obviously taken the bank's format and the template. And it was, here's your credit card statement. You've opted in to receive them via email. And I was working from home, multitasking, and I clicked run it. And then I suddenly saw it went to HTML and opened up HTML page. It was shut down immediately. Hopefully I caught it in time. But when I went back to it, if I looked at who the email was from, sure enough, it said my bank's name there. But if you right-click on it, you will actually identify what the real email address is sitting behind it, and it was some nonsense email address. Right. So if I had done that and had just slowed down, I would have made sure it wasn't. So take that responsibility on yourself, and make sure that every single email that you look at, every single site that you go to, every piece of software that you download, that you are really thinking about it. Do you trust the site where it's coming from? Do you trust the individual that it's sending it to you? And don't open up any document that you don't know what that document's about.
And then I'll say on that, if you're using a collaborative platform like SideDrawer, then you're avoiding all of that sensitive information exchange taking place in your email. Because if your email does get hacked, it's not just your inbox, but your sent items, your draft items, where you thought you were writing an email with an attachment and you scrapped it, but it's still sitting there, your deleted items, and all the folders become accessible to that hacker. So to that bad actor. So the idea is to avoid all of that, reduce the email clutter, reduce the chances of accidentally clicking on an email, opening an attachment, and being secure for your business as well as your clients and all the folks that you're collaborating with. So figure out how you're doing that today. If we're a solution that can help, or if there's a CRM or however you want to make it or approach that, feel free to reach out to us and reach out to John. But I think those are very important things to consider as well.
Very good. I think this has been a lot of ground covered. I'm going to keep a healthy distance from your computer for a little while until I'm sure that we're safe. But it's really, I think email is such a pervasive tool, and it has such a negative payload when it goes bad, when emails go bad. I used to encourage people to not send files over email. No good can ever come from it. There's no benefit to it's email, not e-file service or something. But yet we still choose to send email. It's so easy to do it. So try at all costs to use services like SideDrawer or some way that you can transmit information securely without having to move it via email, because it just sits there like I used to call this a digital ashtray. It sits in there and you don't get rid of it in your sent items. It just stays there forever. If anyone hacks your mailbox, they get access to everything you've ever sent, can use it to say, I sent you this other thing on this date, which would be accurate because they could see. It's just a bad situation to use it for transferring sensitive information.
Can we just get your credit card
Yeah,
number?
yeah, with pleasure.
Or your signature here. Perfect.
Any other points we want to cover? Anyone have anything else we want to say?
Comments or questions?
Yeah, were there any questions on the stream? No questions?
We answered everything.
Yeah, we may have
everything.
answered a lot there, but I think we have a huge thank you to the team that supported us in setting this up.
Thank
We
you.
really appreciate it. The folks who handled all of our sound and our video.
Connie, it was Chantel.
Yeah.
I think, Connie, Chantel, and Henry's as well for hosting us.
Yeah,
This is a very
this was
cool
really
space.
good.
And thank you, Gary, Kevin, Ali, for coming in and agreeing to do this with me on very short notice. And I hope everybody got a lot of value out of it. I hope the people watching and who will watch this recording in the future, I think it was very valuable. And just in preparing, I learned a lot about just like what was happening and how bad the situation really is out there, and new ways that I can protect myself and help my clients. So I appreciated the whole preparation that we did for this, and I appreciate you coming and sharing all this stuff online. And I think it's really great too for people to see and meet directly with professionals like yourselves, because we don't get to interact with you day to day. It's like there's the IT guy behind the wall, and no one was really actually talking to you guys to necessarily to know what's going on or how to protect themselves. And so it's really great. You provide a lot of great context and a lot of great tips that people can use going forward. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Thanks, everybody.